Hi, it's Mark Coopersmith, and in my ongoing series of conversations with experts on all things entrepreneurial, it's my pleasure to spend some time with a colleague of mine, and an entrepreneur and former entrepreneur and a fellow instructor at UC Berkeley, Todd Morrill. Hey, Todd.
Hey, Mark, how's it going?
Pretty good, thanks. And thank you for spending some time with me and by extension with us on this topic of customer discovery.
My pleasure.
So let me frame it just a little bit and then let's jump in. So yeah, this the topic of customer discovery is something that for many of the people watching this video, they say, aha, it's in the syllabus, it's in the course, it's something that's expected of us. And for some of you watching, this might be, a new concept, but you have to do it. So as a part of this curriculum, you have to do it. So we're going to spend some time with Todd talking about kind of a little bit why you do it, but know that it's coming, what it is and how to be most effective of that, kind of in doing it. And I'll just share just briefly about Todd and then kind of turn it over. So Todd is a longtime colleague of mine. We have taught entrepreneurship together for a number of years. And before that, somewhat similar to me, Todd was a startup and a corporate startup executive on the discovery side of biopharma, kind of, making new discoveries, creating new applications of technologies, those types of things. And I'm sure he can explain it much better. It's been great to collaborate with Todd as he has taken hundreds of students that we've shared together and thousands of scientists and business executives through this process of customer discovery and more in a number of programs, not just at UC Berkeley, but with the National Science Foundation. And Todd, let me turn it over for you to kind of frame a little bit about kind of what you do with these students and if there's anything more that you'd like to share about yourself as we jump in.
All right. Thanks, Mark. Um, all right. So, uh, I've started 4 companies and I've been in, employee 1 or 3 or 10 or something like that, and another 2 or 3. And I have to say, I was always a little unsure what I was supposed to do. And I mean, you say that sounds crazy as an entrepreneur. How could you say that? But it's true. I mean, I got to get a license for this, and I got to build a lab for that. But at the how do I really facilitate the development of the company? I didn't understand. Um, at one point after I had done several startups, I stumbled on this concept of customer discovery. I'm going to change that word in just a minute, but let's start there. Which solved a lot of those problems. And so the reason I do this, the reason this is what I teach and what I live and what I do is because I find that this technique solves a set of problems that's actually really hard to solve through any other method. Now, customer discovery is the official word. That's what the canon says. I'm going to call it people discovery. And it's really just a technique of talking to people in a non-confrontational, kind of drilling down and telling me everything you know sort of way to get them to talk. Um, Having said that, it's a structured conversation technique. You know what you want to ask and how you want to ask it, so as to elicit the information you want. So I do it because it's very useful in many fora. I do it because it's helpful for startups, and calling it customer discovery is great. If you're uncomfortable with that word, just call it people discovery, call it member discovery, call it stakeholder discovery, and it all works the same way.
So Todd, quick question. So one of the things that we talk about at the very beginning when we look at the process of launching startups is very much what you just said, which is where do you start? Because there are so many things that you have to do. So in this curriculum and in general, we break down the let's launch a company into lots of different components, into smaller pieces. And when we're talking about customer discovery, that's one of the pieces, and you break it down into components inside that. So what's the objective of customer discovery or people discovery?
Well, I mean, the goal in all cases is to get information that it might otherwise be difficult to get. So, look, the beauty of Google is you can go to the internet, and you just type something in the search bar or in the URL bar, and you can find all kinds of stuff. And obviously, it's very good at finding what you're really asking for. If you got to drill down a little bit, but you can find things all over the world. You can't do that for people.
Information about what type of things?
For Google, for
No,
people.
no, no, for people, the people discovery.
Yeah.
Google, we know,
Right.
yeah.
So what they think, what they want, what they do, how they behave, what drives their behavior, et cetera, et cetera. So all of the things that are relevant for people. I mean, look, at the trivial level, it's would you buy my thing? I got this cool thing.
Right.
It's a sales technique. We don't use it for that. That's not at all what we use it for, but it's analogous to that. It's much more tell me about, your needs and wants and help me understand them.
So do you use it to pitch a product, or do you use it to understand their needs, wants, problems, so you can make sure you design a product that meets those?
It's much more the second. Now, I want to be careful because there's sort of several word semantic difference here. This technique can also be used later on for actually selling, but it's not what we're trying to do here at all, at all, at all. It's simply to find out what people think. And the people we're most interested in a startup is customers, because arguably, startups fail usually from a lack of customers.
Right.
So what we're doing is finding out what those customers want, therefore building the product or service or whatever that they might want, testing it along the way and being more successful.
Yeah. And now a little later on, and we may have introduced it briefly, we'll be talking about this great thing called product market fit, right? Does your product meet the needs, wants of customers? Are they willing to pay for it in whatever way? And
Right.
this is what we're really trying to uncover.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And now the first part of that process from the lean launchpad approach is problem solution fit. So even before product market fit, what you're doing is you're going to find out people's problems and find out whether you have or could design a solution to those problems. And it's not 100% open-ended because obviously you end up talking about golf or politics or
Right, right,
something, and that's usually not what you're trying to solve.
right.
But as long as you constrain it within the world you're trying to look at, you just get people to tell you about what bugs them, what works, what doesn't work, and so on, and begin to develop a rapport with them through that.
Right. So when we talk about problem solution fit, I mean, again, you said we're not selling them. Do we start with, here's my solution, here's what I think is a great idea. Do you have a problem around this, or do we do it a different way?
You do it a different way, and like I said, this is a very human discovery kind of thing. So the analogy you could think of is you go to a party, you walk up to someone at the party, and you can say, hi, my name is Todd. I work in the biopharma industry. I do this job. I'm a marketing person. I do this. I do this. And people sort of say, yeah, okay. So what's going on here? On the other hand, if you walk up and you say, hey, my name is Todd. Hey, listen, I saw your picture in the paper the other day. It looked like a really interesting thing you're doing. Or I see that you're wearing hiking boots. Did you go hiking today? That's really interesting. Or, boy, I've heard your name. Geez, are you at Berkeley? And you ask them about them, you very often get a very positive response. And that's what we're doing. So I have a solution. I'm not talking about it. I'm going to ask you about you, customer, to find out what you think.
Right. So let's say I have an idea, I'll just make this up, right, in the health and wellness category, and I want to be able to sell a fitness program or something like that. So I come up with an idea. How do I go out and test that? How do I get the information through customer discovery, or pick another type of solution or sector that you'd like to talk about? So what I'd like to do would be to help us get tangible and tactical in the way that we might set up a customer discovery program. I have an idea. I think I have a problem that I'm solving. What do I do next?
Okay. So customer discovery is part of at least three moving pieces. Customer discovery is the way you test hypotheses. It's how you run experiments. But the first step is hypothesize. So what you're going to do is you're going to guess. I've got this program which X, I've got a company which Y, I've got a technology which Z. You're going to guess at who might be interested, customers, and guess at why they might be interested, value propositions.
Mhm.
And you just guess. You don't know. I mean, maybe you do, but you just guess. You write them down. Then you go talk to people and you get them to confirm or disconfirm your hypotheses, and you continue that testing process. The people you find through any of a number of techniques. So if I'm really interested in, I don't know, shoes, I'd probably go to a shoe convention, or I'd talk to people in Starbucks because they all are wearing shoes. If I'm interested in plasma physics, I got to go find plasma physicists or people who use plasma physics.
Right.
And there are a bunch of techniques you can use for finding emails and phone numbers of people who are active in the field.
Right.
And then you basically just say, hey, listen, I hear you're smart. You don't use exactly these words, but this concept. And interesting, would you be willing to spend a few minutes with me? And a large percentage say, sure, why not? and they talk to you.
And how do you structure a conversation to get that approach? Let's say we are hanging outside a gym and we're thinking about something in health and wellness or fitness. How do we structure a conversation? We might introduce ourselves. What do we say first? And then how do we try and at least get to those topics
Yeah.
that we want to learn about?
So if you've already found the people you want to talk to, I would just start it out with, hey, Mark, listen, thanks for doing this. Really appreciate you taking the time. I'm working on a project related to health and wellness. Specifically, it has to do with exercise, and I can tell you more about it. But really, I want to hear what you kind of think about this world, rather than giving you my whole pitch. Would that be okay? Yeah. Okay. So just tell me, when you think about health and wellness, is this something you think about like every minute of every day or once a year? How does it occur to you? How does it enter your brain?
So maybe I'll say, well, I'm at the gym right now, so I try and work out 3 times a week.
Great. Okay. So can you tell me a little bit about what you're thinking when you make that decision to go 3 times a week? Is this something that really has a big mind share, or is it just a tiny piece of what you're doing?
Well, I feel better when I work out and it keeps me in better shape and, I'm stronger. I guess there's a lot of reasons why I come to the gym. Sometimes I work out with weights, sometimes I'll take a yoga class. There's a lot of different reasons I come.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is maybe there's a physical strength thing, there's an aerobic exercise thing, there's maybe a mindfulness with the yoga. I mean, maybe it's just physical, but maybe it's psychological. So it looks like you're really looking for at least those three things. Am I sort of on the right path there?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Actually, I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, I normally just think I'm going to go to the gym. But yeah, you're right. That's why I do that.
Okay. So now what I haven't told you, Mark, is I've got the secret list right here of my hypothesis. I've got another hypothesis. I'm going to test it. So Mark, tell me a little bit about is there any social aspect for you in the gym? Do you go with a workout partner? Do you talk to people at the gym? How does that work?
Huh. I never thought of going to the gym as being social, but I actually run into a lot of friends there. It's become,
Interesting.
it's a nice kind of byproduct of going to work out. Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about, I mean, how many times, how many people, how often? Just some context there.
Yeah. Well, I would say most of the time when I go to the gym, I see at least one or two, friends of mine, or, sometimes people that I met at the gym, but a lot of times people that I've known for years because it's right in my community and it's fun to catch up with them there.
Okay, so it's kind of Starbucks while you're lifting weights, right? I mean, it's standing in line and chatting with people, but you're doing something else at the meantime.
Yeah, I'm getting healthier as opposed to just, eating cookies and pastries and drinking caffeine, and I get a nice social component. Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Great. So can you just give me just guess, because I'm not, this is hard to quantify. How important do you think that is? Do you think the social matters, or is it really just the exercise component?
Hmm. I started coming to the gym. I mean, I joined the gym for the exercise, but actually, one of the things that makes it easier for me to come back, especially when I'm not feeling like working out, is looking forward to who I might run into. So I would say the reason I'm still a member is a combination of the social and the exercise. I hadn't thought
Interesting.
about that.
Interesting. Okay. So if you don't mind, can you give me a specific example? I mean, I understand friends and I understand chit chat. I mean,
Yeah.
that's not, but can just think of a specific example, like in the last couple of days or last week, and just tell me who you talked to and what you said and how that changed the few minutes you were talking to them.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. So I had just finished working out, in a class that I took and was walking through the exercise place, and there was an old college friend of mine that I hadn't seen in 10 years working out on the treadmill. And we must have caught up while he was working out, for 20 minutes or so. And we made a commitment to try and get together with our families because it had been a long time. And when I came back and told my wife, she said, "Wow, that's great. We haven't seen those guys in so long." So there was some kind of this was actually a nice surprise, but those things happen every so often.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay, so my words, not yours, just to make sure I get it here. You reestablish contact with somebody who would be fun to know, and you're willing, at least, preliminary, take on the time and risk of having him come over and have a chat and get to know everybody a little bit better.
Right.
So, okay, great. Thank you. That's really helpful. That's really helpful.
So,
Yeah.
so what just, no, that was great. So what just happened there? I mean, we just kind of created this on the fly. By the way, that was actually a true story of me at the gym sometime back though, outside of COVID when that happened. But yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So you're always trying to figure out, because it's so open-ended, you and I are kind of shuffling, trying to sort out
right,
what we're really talking about.
right,
What I was trying to show was there's some obvious reasons to go to the gym. Like I do it because I feel better when I do it, or I need to strengthen my elbow because I broke it the other week, or something like that. But there are a lot of motivations that people have that they have a hard time expressing. I go to look at the girls. It's just hard for people to say that.
right.
But if you have this open, kind of friendly level conversation, they'll often volunteer things that gives you an opening to peel back the curtains a little bit and get them
Right.
to give you more information. Then as they begin to talk about it, they say things exactly what you said, which is, yeah, well, I hadn't really thought of it that way, but I guess, when you then go to a specific, suddenly it either blossoms, and it turns out that's really important,
Right.
or it collapses.
Right.
They were guessing, and now it turns out that they don't actually care. So all I'm trying to do is validate this series of why else do you do it? How important is it to you? Are you really interested in that? If you could do more of that, would that be fun? And arguably, that's what my startup is all about, because I just made that up.
Yeah, no, but we started talking about exercise, but as you learned more about my experiences through those open-ended conversations, what was interesting is there may be, and this is where you might be going, if you can incorporate the social element more comprehensively, it may actually get me to go to the gym more. It may actually positively improve my health and my mental health, my social experience, but that may not have been where you started out to go from a health and fitness standpoint. You may have said, look, I'm going to come up with a fitness app, for example, but you end up with something very different.
That's right. That's right. And one way to think of it is, one goes to the gym, one does a thing, one buys a product, one uses a product, whatever it happens to be, to fulfill some need. And there's this list of needs that because you wear them on your lapel right here that says get in shape and yada yada yada. There's usually a list of needs that are not quite so obvious. And that's kind of what we're trying to elicit here. What are those hidden, or at least not explicit, needs? Not in a sneaky secret way at all. It's just get people to sort of think more carefully about what they usually don't think about. And sometimes, not every time, you get these shocking breakthroughs where it turns out, they're not going to buy an iPhone because of the technology. You got to say it's got technology, but they're really going to buy it because it's cool.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that you did, which is always a useful technique, is as opposed to saying, would you, you said, tell me about the last time or the last couple times, because what we think we might do is often different from what we actually did. And what I'd like to do as we kind of start to move towards wrapping this up would be, there are some tips in what you did because of your expertise in that brought out an opportunity that was non-obvious, and that's really important. It was a non-obvious insight to both of us, although maybe that was your hypothesis. So one of them is ask, last time you did this, or the last 3 times you did this, how did you feel? What did you do? What was the outcome? So that's one. What are a couple of other components that are really important?
Okay, if I may, I'm going to take a half a step back and then I'll get to your
Please.
question.
Yeah.
So this is an indirect questioning technique. In other words, I want to know, because remember, I've hypothesized, I've guessed.
Right.
I want to know the answer to A, B, C. But if I come and say, Mark, tell me about A, you may not have thought of it explicitly. It may be too personal. It may be, So what I do is I ask other questions or get you to talk about things and then work my way around to A. The analogy I use here is, if I said to you, how much money do you make? In our culture, that's offensive. You would say, and change the subject, right? But I could figure it out. I'm not going to do it. I don't care. But I could figure out, oh, really? Oh, gosh. Yeah. I'm really into cars. Tell me about your car. Oh, you have a Tesla. Really interesting. Oh, you've got the big one with the gull wing doors. Oh, that's really cool. So do you commute a lot? Oh, you do. Yeah, you commute. Oh, really? Oh, so where do you live then? Because you're teaching. Oh, you live there. Oh, I see. And you can imagine what I'm doing. I'm beginning to accumulate information about wealth and about income just based on friendly conversations.
Right.
Now, that seems a little sneaky, and I don't we don't use it for that in iCore, but the concept is in Lean Launchpad, the concept is asking indirectly and getting them to talk.
Right.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is I think that is having three levels. The first level question is, tell me about, and then comes your experience at the gym, when you go to the gym, whatever it happens to be. The second one is, give me a specific example. When was the last time that happened? Can you give me a specific example? Have you ever seen that yourself? The third level, which we didn't get to, is, and what's the ramification of that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, in a personal sense, like you're going to invite friends over, if I say, what's the ramification of that, it sounds a little odd because it's kind of
Right.
none of my business. But in a professional setting where someone says, oh, yeah, we use such and such a software, we used it the other day, and boy, it really did great. Then you can say, oh, so how did that change what you're doing? What was the ramification?
Yeah.
And then they're happy to answer.
Kind
So
of what
three levels.
happens. What happens next?
What happens
Yeah.
next?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So three levels. Tell me about, which isn't even a question, right?
Right.
Then give me a specific example, and then ramifications.
Perfect. So if we were going to kind of break that down, and then how do you track this? I mean, how, when do you know you've got an insight? When you hear something once, when you hear it a number of times, how do you evolve your customer discovery conversation? Because to begin with, it's going to be pretty broad in many
Yep.
instances until maybe you start to get some insights.
Yeah. Well, so I'll suggest you get insights from the very first conversations, but it doesn't mean that they're rock solid.
Yeah.
What actually happens over time is that as you do more interviews, discussions, you get better and better at asking more and more specific questions and understanding exactly what the thing is that you're trying to test. So you go from vague positives to more specific positives or negatives to even more specific positives and negatives. Because people like a number, what I say is 5. If you get the same response 5 times, it is probably accurate.
So you're
Uh,
looking for, yeah, more than that, even whether it's five or not, you're looking for patterns. And if you start to see
right.
patterns, especially ones that surprise you when you go, huh, I didn't expect that, that's where you get a unique insight that lets you kind of go off in a slightly different direction that could be very promising.
So this is called customer discovery. And I mean discovery in the sense that discovery doesn't mean I'm going to make a Cartesian grid of the new place I'm visiting. Discovery means, oh, I'm going to sail up this river because it's
Right,
easy. And then I'm going to, oh, there are mountains and a waterfall. Oh, gosh, I'm going to go into the plains rather than jungle. And
right,
you just kind of wander around and you discover all sorts of interesting stuff.
right.
One discovery does not change your world, but you then confirm it with 2 or 3 other people, and you suddenly say, oh my gosh, forget fitness tracking. I'm doing social tracking. It just happens to be at the fitness club.
Right. So the other thing that instead of customer discovery, you said call it people discovery, and kind of embedded in that, it's also kind of problem solution discovery. So
Right.
it's like, aha,
Problem discovery.
problem discovery is a unique element. You're not pitching the solution, but rather you're validating the problem or validating the
Correct.
need that you can then attach a solution to.
So in the startup for-profit world, it's customers. That's what you focus on.
Right.
The truth is you talk to lots of people who are not customers and you do it for particular reasons. If you're not for profit, customers may or may not be your thing, but you
Right.
certainly have stakeholders. And it's the same thing. You want to know what they need and what they want, what they love and what they hate. And this technique works.
Yeah.
If you're trying to find scientific collaborators, which is part of what we do, same technique works. That's why I say it's people discovery. You could get people to talk to you all day about themselves because they love it.
Well, and again, kind of in any of those arenas that you just shared, including kind of the social arena, people have options. Even people that don't seem to have a lot of options have options. And what you want to do is to make sure that your option is the one ultimately that most meets their needs, wants, problems that they're dealing with.
Right. If you're trying to create an enterprise, nonprofit, for profit, doesn't really matter. You're trying to mess up people's lives. Now, I know you're going to tell us that you're going to make them better, but they have to change what they're doing. There's an activation energy that's necessary. And what this does is allows you to figure out how to lower that activation energy. So in their world of choices, they choose you.
Yeah. Todd, this was great. I think we've covered it. Is there one last thing that you would want to leave us with?
I guess the last bit is that this can sound scary. It's actually really fun.
Yeah.
Almost everybody gets a charge out of this because you just get enormous amounts of positive feedback without soliciting it. You just talk, people talk. So my takeaway is this is actually a real kick to do in addition to being useful.
Yeah, and I guess for those of you who haven't done it, which will probably be most of us, the hardest interview is often the first one. And once you get through the first one or two and start to be more comfortable with it, it becomes much easier. So get out and do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect because you'll have plenty more opportunities to do the second, third, fourth, and learn from those. Todd Morrill from UC Berkeley National Science Foundation, thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure.